What's going on? What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Rap Review Room. I'm your host, Philosophical. I want to first say I appreciate everybody that has liked, shared, and also subscribed, but also commented down. I also try to respond to all the comments, man. I appreciate everybody that's kind of been engaged in that way. As you can see, man, we got a guest here. A lot of people requested this guest, this interview, man. Really appreciate him taking the time, man. We got Zeus Money, man. Really appreciate you coming on the show, being on the show, man. Thank you so much for taking the time out today, man.
Thank
Um,
you for having me. Thank you for having me.
yeah, man. Yeah, man. So Zeus Money, I reviewed his track "Walk with Me," which was an amazing track. And then we kind of developed a friendship connection there, man, and really been talking, man. Really, really cool guy, man. And once I put the review out, everyone was like, "Man," I asked if people wanted interview with him, and it was an overwhelming yes. and I reached out to him. It's like, "Man, do you see the comments? People were kind of want you as an interview." So here we are. Here we are, y'all.
Yeah,
So
man.
Zeus Money, man, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, man.
I'm from Philadelphia, PA,
Yep.
and I actually am a martial arts teacher. I teach
Nice.
martial arts to children. I teach it to adults, and I've been doing martial arts for over 35 years. I've been
Nice.
teaching for I don't know, something like 20 something years, and I really love it. And along with loving that, I also I love hip hop. I love
Yeah.
emceeing. I love producing, and that at one point, this decided I just decided that this was going to be something I took a little bit more serious, and that's what
Yeah.
brings me here. So
Yeah, man, no doubt, no doubt. So let's start with that, man. Your album that um Walk With Me was titled Out the Mud, correct?
yes, sir.
Yep. Um so let's start with that, man. I like to speak on the album titles, but also the album covers. So let's start with the album title. What does Out the Mud mean to you, personally?
So I mean, I could tell you a little bit about how it came about.
Okay.
When I was DJ Excel is the executive producer of the album,
Okay.
and we were talking about like what possibly could be the name of the album, and I actually live like right on the Delaware Canal, which is
Okay.
like directly linked to the Delaware River, and I just saw like these muddy flowers, and I told him like what I saw and how interesting it was, and I told him like I feel like that could be linked to the album in some way, and
Yeah.
then I don't know, a few days later he comes back, he's like, "I got it. It's gonna be called Out the Mud," and the lotus flower is the cover,
Right.
and so I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but a lotus flower grows out of the mud, so it grows in the darkness.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's kind of like how I feel the album is. If you listen to the album in
Yeah.
its entirety, it
Yep.
talks
Yep.
about has that premiere concept
Yep.
where
Yeah.
you are growing, being like your truest self, your most honest self, and the light will pull you to its surface, and that's where out the mud, the concept of out the mud comes from.
And speaking of that, I will say, comparing that to a lotus flower, there are some skits on this album that kind of signifies like that. You don't it grows out of like a lotus flower is growing out of the mud.
Yeah.
Right. So that fits perfectly with my question. I was like, man, I was gonna ask you, what was the inspiration behind the project? And you kind of mentioned, the growth with, of the lotus fire growing out of the mud, and you had some. It's a certain ambiance on this, right? With these
Yeah.
skits, can you kind of speak? What was kind of the inspiration with that? What was some of the experiences you were going through
Uh,
personally that kind of related to
so
you with that?
the story behind how the album even got started was, so we all know 2020 COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
And Excel, who he actually is an international DJ, he DJs all around the world, and
Okay.
obviously there was no traveling. So he hits me up and he says, "Hey, I'm going to like focus on my production. Can you just write some reference tracks for me?"
Okay.
And so that's what I did. He sent me over some beats. I wrote some reference tracks, sent them over to him because he was planning on selling the beats. And next thing you know, he was like, oh man, these joints is too good.
Right.
It's like, and we just kept working, kept working. Next thing you know, we had a 16 track album with a couple hidden tracks built in.
Wow. Wow.
And I don't know if you ever came across the hidden tracks. There's hidden tracks in the album, which is pretty cool. Uh,
I think they were. I think you're speaking about they were 5 extra tracks, right? I think.
uh, well, they yeah, but they were hidden into the album, which is
Okay.
pretty neat. Yeah. Um, but obviously all of us were in that place. We were
Okay.
all at home.
Right.
And so when I immediately took writing these songs as like I wanted to be like a most, again, like honest version of myself, so I just wrote stories about like my personal life.
Right. Okay.
And if a lot of the tracks reference like relationships, like
Yeah.
love relationships, but they also reference like relationship with your family, relationship
Right.
with God,
Right.
relationship with your friends. So I feel like I wanted to write something that portrayed like the people who I love in my life, which is a lot different than what you get when you hear a rap album.
Right. Right. Because
There's a,
I wanted to mention you spoke a lot about your daughter on this album.
yes, I did. 100%.
Yeah, and you had a specific song on here about your daughter. Was there some homelessness also going on?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a song called "I Love My House."
Right.
It
Yep.
starts out with like I think like a freestyle or something like that.
Yeah.
Then it
Yeah.
goes into the actual song, and uh, yeah. So I remember when Excel and I were talking. If you listen to the beat, I think the beat is Roberta Flack sample,
Yep.
which was a little Kim joint at one point.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and I heard that, and I'm more of a Roberta Flack sample than I am a Lil Kim sample, even though I love Lil
Okay.
Kim.
Yeah.
But I love Roberta Flack, and it made me think of the concept of um, like what a home is, right? And how important that is. And
Yeah.
so when I wrote that track, I was thinking about the time where I didn't have a home, where I didn't. So just to give you a little bit like background about that, I had a 9 to 5 regular gig, and one day I decided I didn't want to live like that anymore. So I quit my job, and I took my life savings and I opened a martial arts school. And I did like I pushed myself like a lot to like keep it going.
Right.
And just like with opening any business, there's ups and downs, and there was a couple
Right.
of those and a couple of those.
Right.
And at one point, yeah, I actually ended up like living in my car, which was kind of crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and but not far after, I got myself back on my feet, and got a crib, and everything was okay. But can I tell you something? As
Yeah.
bad
Yeah. Yeah.
as bad as it was, that moment, I remember those moments very vividly.
Yeah.
I feel like it was worth it, man. I feel like it was
Okay.
worth it. Because when you go after something that you believe is like your life purpose,
Right.
uh, just like art, like you with with the podcast, man. Like when you go after something that's your life purpose, you willing to pay any price. I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I felt that on this album where each song, and you kind of mentioned also listen to it backwards because you're getting a certain type of growth from kind of start to finish, but also you're getting from finish to start. And I went back. I did it both times. I was like, okay. I was like, okay. So it felt like also, and I spoke about this on the Redman album when I felt like the skits were a little outdated, but on your album, I felt like the skits were kind of like at you were at peace with each experience you were dealing with on this album. And
Yeah,
that's kind of what I felt like. Go ahead. What
you
were you gonna
asked
say?
me. I'm sorry. You did ask me earlier about like the skits, and I kind of veered off a little bit. My
Right.
bad. But the
Because I feel
skits,
like skits are important
yeah.
because yeah, go ahead. Go ahead though.
So the beginning skit is a pastor. He is talking about Matthew. I think it's 13,
Yep.
and that is like literally it says in the verse itself, coming out of the mud.
Right.
How
Yep.
Excel pulled that Out of his ass, I don't know. Like it was crazy because that was like the final piece of the album was
Okay.
creating the intro.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
the beat that you heard, I was originally rhyming over it, and neither one of us liked it. And then
Oh.
he pieces these the pastor, and then he talks on it, which is great because I wanted him to be a part of it so bad, and
Okay.
like having him present in the album,
Okay.
and then and then it kind of like dies out, and but the beat that he put together for it is amazing. It was a great introductory to the album.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
set the
Yeah.
tone for what was to come.
Yeah.
Um, the other skits was the I don't know how if you're a Devil's Advocate fan, but um,
Yeah. The movie Devil's Advocate.
yeah, Al
Yeah.
Pacino
Yeah. Al Pacino. Yeah.
in the Dinner with the Devil
Yep.
song.
Yep. Yep.
He talks about fighting. It's the devil, and he's talking about his battle with God, which was
Ah.
great.
Okay.
I don't know if you caught that part, and
Yep.
it kind of goes into the beat. The beat is incredible,
Yeah. Yep.
and then I come and I end the actual song because like it's
Okay.
a long song. It's
Yeah. 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 I did catch that. I did catch that. That was. I just want to get the. Let me just make sure. Let me get the. Let me see here. You remember? You want to say the name of that track?
so it's Dinner with the Devil.
Okay. Yeah.
And it
Yep.
starts out with the Al Pacino skit. It goes into like a very long introductory with
Yep.
like the samples chopped in,
Yep.
and then I end out the song with a very like I think it was like 60 bar verse, no hook. And when we created that, it was we felt like we wanted it to be more theatrical than
Okay.
than an actual like hook hook verse hook kind of thing.
Uh, and that's okay. I mean,
Yeah,
that's cool. I just feel like um, it's one of those things where it's just it was just different, man. It was just different. You ever hear an album? You hear some albums. You hear a lot of mainstream albums, and then you hear independent artists, and it's like, man, this should be talked about more. It should be expressed more. It should be understood a little more. So I appreciated that. You know what I mean? This whole album, this whole project was kind of a man, it was kind of growth where I could really relate to you and what you were going through. And I know things been times may be different now, but we're going to speak on that in a few moments. But sometimes where we spoke off air, where it's like you make a project and even today you go back and listen to it, and it's kind of a realization of like, yeah, you're not going through that, but it's learning lessons.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I know sometimes, when we speak on music, certain topics in music of our experiences, our life, and it's kind of it triggers us, but I think sometimes, there's growth with that too. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. So how does this project, differ from your previous work in your opinion?
So I'm also part of a group called Self Hatred,
Okay.
and Self Hatred is myself and my nephew, and we actually have 3 albums that we just had for ourselves and our friends. Like it wasn't even something that we put on any kind of platforms or anything like that. It was something that we created just for the love of hip hop, writing, giving it to our friends, and like I said earlier, this album was like the first album where I was like, okay, I'm going to create something that's a little bit more serious,
Okay.
something that's a little bit more personal. Um, my nephew is pretty much the only other feature on the album that he's on a song called "I Think She Fly." She thinks she
Okay.
fly,
Yep.
and
Yep. And Hades, right?
Hades, yeah, yeah.
Right.
So the name of the group is ZH,
Okay.
also known as Zeus and Hades, also
Okay.
known as Self Hatred.
Okay.
Um, and we've been doing it for umpteen years, man,
Okay.
and we love it. We
Is
love it.
Excel part of that group also, or he comes later? He was later.
So Excel is again, he's a world renowned DJ. He actually is the founder of the Scratch Mechanics crew, and the
Okay.
Scratch Mechanics crew has been around for over 20 years.
Right.
And they include DJ J Ski, which was the gentleman who broke in.
I know who Jay Ski is.
Yeah, J
Yeah.
Ski is also.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So J Ski, I'd sent him my new album recently,
Right.
And he, he gave the feedback that he gave me, man. You know, that he's like a big brother that always encourages me to do better. So yeah, I
Right.
got the hat on, Scratch Mechanics,
Yeah.
always representing. So Ski's in there, DJ Sat One, DJ Beezus
Yep.
from down there in Virginia, I think, right?
Right. That name
Uh,
sounds familiar too. That name
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
familiar
He,
too.
he was
Okay.
he was on the radio for a long time.
Okay.
And he has a store down there too, like a record store.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, these they were my upbringing. I always listened to them and their mixtapes, and they were a big part of my growth as well. But this album was, Excel as the producer, me as the MC, and that's
Right.
kind of what made it different from any projects that I've done before.
Okay.
And he grew as a producer up to this point, and I grew as an MC. And he
Right.
always told me, "Hey, I want to A&R a album for you one day, or a song for you one day." And it just happened to be that we're both sitting at home doing nothing during COVID, and it was
Yeah.
the opportunity. And we can't believe it. We created the album in like 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing, man. So can you give some specific tracks that hold kind of a deep personal meaning for you? You mentioned a track before, um, the track with about your daughter.
Yeah.
Kind of give another track that kind of holds a deep meaning for you. Kind of give a little story behind it, also.
Oh man, that's actually the track that came to my mind. That's called the Lily song.
Okay.
When
Okay. Lily song. Yep.
Yeah, when
Yep.
so one of the purposes of the album that when I was sitting down writing these songs with the intention of creating an album, the the one thing that was going to be a steady piece of the album
Okay.
was, at the time, my daughter was younger. She's a teenager now.
Right.
And so I told Excel, I said, "Hey, um, this album, I don't want any curses in the album.
Okay.
So if you
Okay.
listen to the album, there's not one curse in the entire
Right.
album."
Right. And I appreciated that. Yeah.
Because I have a younger daughter, and at this time I really, and then I also am a martial arts instructor. So if
Yeah.
like my students hear this, I didn't
Right.
want
Right.
that. This new album that I'm working on is a little bit a lot different in many different ways, but this particular album, I wanted it to be like clean. I
Okay.
wanted the messages to be clean. And if you notice, the songs that I write about relationships, or even
Right.
Lily,
Right.
um, they've the ideas behind them are mature. So
Yes. Yes. I was gonna. They're very mature. They're not very. I call it bashing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's reflective.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
so for the Lily song, I wanted to write a song that Lily could listen to in 10 and 20 years
Right.
and get the advice that I've always wanted to give her for the foundation of what I believe would be in her best interest.
Okay.
So let's say 15 years pass from now, and she's graduated college or whatever it may be, or she's in her career and she's struggling, and she thinks about the song and plays it, and it has like a new meaning to her because she's matured. That's
Yeah.
the song I wanted to create. And I felt like I wanted to also give that opportunity to other young women.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and believe it or not, when the album came out, I got a DM from one of my older students, and she messaged me like, "Hey, this really resonated with me because I had the same relationship with my father,"
Okay.
and that solidified like the purpose of the song. And
Okay.
it made me very happy to get that message. And it was, I got other DMs like that too. Um,
Right. And I guess my next question was, what message you want listeners to take away from this album? And that's pretty much, that father daughter relationship. Relationships in general. Right. I assume.
um, yeah, I mean, there's so many different subject matters in the album.
Right. Right. Yep.
Um, so at the end of the album, there's a song. It's not really a song, but there's a title of a track
Right.
called "Words of Mason."
Yep.
And the gentleman speaking on that album, his name is Aaron Mason, and he happens to be my longest friend. I've known
Okay.
him since I was 6 years old, and he just has a way with words, and he's really wise. And I remember I was at I was hosting a rap show,
Okay.
and this was probably like 15 years ago, and I happened to be like the final act of the show. Not intentional, it just happened that way,
Right.
and I killed the show. And he came up to me at the end, and he gave me like his most honest opinion about my performance. He was like, "You killed it, but this is where you need to work on. This is what you need to work on."
Oh,
And
that's good. Yeah.
I never forgot that from him. You know what
Right.
I mean? And
Yeah.
so when I went to create this, I wanted him to be on the album, on the track, and he actually, believe it or not, that entire track is done like off the top of the head.
Oh
And
wow.
the message that he talks about is that love, which is the top, which is the sums up the album. It's
Okay.
love, right? It's
Yeah.
love for your family, love for your culture, love for your friends, and how like that should come before anything in your life. And
Okay.
because we all get caught up in the grind. We all get caught up in the everyday struggle, and we
Yeah.
forget sometimes that we got to set aside time to just be and with
Right.
each other, with
Yep.
ourselves, you know
Yep.
and
Yeah.
I feel like if you listen to that track, Words of Mason, he really gives, kind of like ends the album on like, hey, this is what this album is truly summed up to signify. And
Okay.
then that's where the hidden track is. If you continue to listen,
Okay.
there's a 1 minute pause, and then I speak on a dedication to my father at the very end.
Okay. So did I didn't catch his first name, but what was the gentleman's name you just said?
Aaron Mason.
Aaron Mason. Did he give you feedback on this album? Did he give you
Oh,
uh
oh yeah, of course.
what was his kind of response to the album?
He lost his mind because
Really?
he had been there since day one.
Okay.
He knows me as a person. He knows like what my personal goals are,
Okay.
and he was like, man, like he's like, I knew you could do this. He said, if anyone could do this, I knew you could do this.
Wow.
The one thing that he was really big on was how great the beats were, and how Excel like really made this seamless album. Like one
Okay.
track kind of flows into the next one, um, and then having me in there, and he saw the growth of me from when first started performing rhyming to like where I am now, and that growth that we continue to talk about. So when his feedback was that like, yo, the beats are crazy,
Right.
the way you rhyme is right, like the
Right.
message came across. So
Right.
I was super grateful for yeah.
And it's crazy because those are some of the during the rhyming process, the writing process, even the recording process, those type of people are kind of in a mind of like, man, what are they going to think about it, right? And I know from experience, man, recording, writing, and things like that, it's like it's not up to their standard. But sometimes, man, we've got to look at it where when we're recording, writing, that whole album process is like it's a catch-22. You don't know, you just don't know until they hear it for themselves, right? And it's crazy because I know for me right now, it's like, you're at a point in your life where like, you hear the sympathy, the sympathy kind of celebratory comments like, it's cool, it's good. But when you really hear the like real comments of, like you said, like he showed me and told me this is what I need to work on, and then you actually going out and execute it, and then when he hears it, it's like you feel a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So after making this album, right? Do you still feel like you got everything out? Do you feel like you still have more to prove on your next
Oh,
project?
so that the last album, like I said, I made more for like me. I made it
Okay.
more for my people, like my
Okay.
direct people. Like in Out the Mud, I'm literally talking directly to people I know, and
Okay.
you can kind of hear it like
Yep.
in
Yep.
the album, like, oh, okay, he's talking to directly to somebody. And but
Right.
in
Yep.
doing that, I hope that others can relate. um
Right.
then I have a new album coming out called Zenith,
Ooh.
and
Okay.
this one has a very different feel to it,
Okay.
because I wanted to create something that was a little had a little bit more uh, like street feel to it,
Okay.
and so that's kind of where I went with this one.
Okay.
When recording Out the Mud, I use a $300 Tascam multi-track DAW, digital audio workstation. For those who
Right.
don't know what that is, and then it had like the cable piece that it would I could dump the waveforms into my computer, and then I edited into like what $70 uh, um, audio, what do you call it, multi-track
Yeah. Yeah.
software.
The
I did-
interface.
yeah,
Yeah.
not even the interface, it was just the I dumped it right into the computer and just
Oh,
edited
okay.
right into the software.
Okay.
And then so what I would do is I would take the edited verses and send them to Excel. And he lives in Los Angeles, by the way,
Wow.
and he actually did the mixing, and then he sent the mixing pieces off to, I don't know how familiar you are with the DJ scene in Philadelphia, but there's a group um, called Ill Vibe, and there's a gentleman by Phil, um, and
That name sounds familiar. Very familiar.
yeah, the he actually mastered the album,
Okay.
and I mean, incredible DJ. Um, if you know Ill Vibe is incredible.
Okay.
Sonny James is also a DJ from Philly. He also moved to Los Angeles, but he was kind of like one of the heads of the group. And so there was a lot of hands that took place in the creating and the completion of the album. But my advice is, do what you can with what you have. Um, Going more into like the business side, of course, invest in like a decent mix, invest in a good master. I think, don't overdo it, because you're going to need to save some of those marketing dollars, some
Right.
of that
Right.
budget for those marketing dollars. Because it's important that, yes, you have this song and everyone, your friends love it, but it's not enough that just your friends love it. You need to be able to invest in the song or the album and make sure that it gets out to people that are
Right.
outside of your circle.
Right.
Maybe you would do a Facebook ad or Instagram ad or YouTube ad or a Google ad, and something as small as um, you know $25 a month,
Yeah.
$50 a month, $100 a month. They say that the magic, there's no real magic number, but 250 a month would actually give you like a big nudge if you
Okay.
just put, let's say you have a a reel that you did, like maybe it's
Okay.
a freestyle of your song, or you performing the song at a show, and you take that reel and you boost it on Instagram or TikTok. You know, f- let's put a number on it, $100 for that
Right.
month.
Right.
That's going to be able to give you that reach where you able to reach a new fan base, and then those people tell their people, and they start to follow you, and they
Right.
go on to Spotify, or um, you know the other part is like put in the work.
Right.
Every day you have to make a step towards reaching a new fan,
Yeah.
or writing a new song. The
Yep.
funny thing is that writing a song is not enough in this day and age. You
It's
have
not.
to
It's not.
not only write and perform the song and record the song, but a part of your um, toolbox or your skill is being able to market yourself. And the great thing about social media is that you can do it for free. But at the same time, if you want to reach outside of your circle, you have to invest some marketing dollars for sure. That would be my biggest advice to a new
Okay.
artist.
And that kind of speaks on a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanna speak on the track I reviewed, "Walk with Me" featuring Excel.
Okay.
How did that track come along? That is a really really dope beat, dope track. Kind of speak on that a little bit.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that I'm actually both verses, by the way. I know.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, because
uh,
it had a different sound to both
yeah,
verses.
yeah.
Okay,
And that was also intentional.
okay,
I told you
okay,
that Zenith, the new album, has a different feel.
okay.
Um, so in Walk My Way, I got the beat and I was like, whoa, I love this track. Like it was so much energy in the track. Um,
Had you
and
done a track like that before, or this was kind of new territory for you?
yes and no.
Okay,
I never done a track with the guidance of Excel.
okay.
Um, because he gave me I learned so much about what goes into like creating a song that could possibly be a hit from Excel. And I felt like this was that song that really made a way for that. For
Right.
like, yeah, I can create something that's a banger, you know.
I
Uh,
heard J. Cole. I was like, "Oh, this is J. Cole." This is
I
Was that
appreciate
your
that.
inspiration? Were you listening to were you going
No,
for that?
no, not at all. He wasn't even on my radar.
Oh, yeah, it's very J. Cole. I was like, "Man, this is J. Cole." Man, I was
um,
like, "Man, maybe one day J. Cole hop in a remix on this."
that would be great.
Yeah, I know, I
Um,
know.
so the inspiration, I wanted to, when I heard the beat immediately, I um I thought of like the songs that grew up like listening to that I loved so much. And like one of the songs that popped in my head when I heard it was Apache, and I was thinking of the Big Bang Hank verse.
Ah,
So if you listen to the first verse, I wrote it in like a almost like an 80s throwback flow.
yep,
I'm a chill, but I could break your neck right now.
yep,
Like the way I wrote it and performed it was very cliche to like an 80, like a late 80s
yep.
flow. And I did that on purpose. Like I didn't in doing this, I didn't care what people were gonna think. Like, oh, that's an old flow. Or, I just didn't care. I just wanted to do it for me. But then when we got to the second verse, I gave you a little bit more of what's true to my style, where it's a little bit more rapid and a little bit more
Right,
uh,
and I
message.
I will say that hook gave me J. Cole vibes,
Yeah,
but I don't know if you remember Jurassic 5 from
yeah, 100%.
Dilated Peoples.
Yeah, two
Uh, I
times.
was like, I was like, oh my god, this is that as a Dilated Peoples well, with the J Cole vibe on it, and I was like,
Yeah,
man, this sounds like Jurassic. I don't know if you remember that track or
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know if
Um,
you felt that same way. I was like, man, this is Dilated Peoples, man. I'm a big Dilated Peoples fan.
so the song was complete. And I sent it to Excel,
Okay,
and I had these like bouncy, yelly ad libs that I
okay,
wasn't happy with,
ooh,
and I said, X, I'm trying to mimic something that I hear in my head, but I can't replicate it.
okay,
And he's like, talk to me. And I was like, yo, you know, like when you hear MOP and that,
yeah, 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 yeah,
oh.
yeah.
And he was like,
You as cold as ice. Yes,
yes.
yes, yes, yes.
He's like, give me 5 minutes.
Okay.
Literally 5 minutes later, he dumped those acapella samples in underneath the hook, and that's
Oh,
what you hear.
okay.
And
How did the hook come along for you? Where did that come from?
okay, so I really, we talked earlier about like, being like being homeless, right?
Right,
And
right,
like coming from a place of struggle, taking a chance on yourself,
right,
all these things, right, that we've been talking
right,
about.
right.
Um, I wanted to create a song for others and for myself that talks about like kind of like seeing yourself in the future. So
Okay.
when I say I walk my way into the fine life, I slip
Yeah.
away into my mind's right. That's
Right.
me kind of projecting my future. Uh,
Wow.
and
Wow.
that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write a song of projecting my success
Wow.
as an artist.
And
And
you mentioned you performed that. How was that? How was it performing that? How was that?
oh
I know the
man,
crowd went crazy.
man, yeah, we did this. Fumbling Perkins is a place down in the city that we performed at, and man, the response to that, along with having the MOP sample looped in there, there's also
Oh yes, yes.
the the roof is on
Oh,
fire.
fire.
You don't need no water. Let this mother burn. Right.
Right,
So if you notice, you only hear the beginning piece, and you don't hear the ending piece.
right.
So I did that intentionally because when I perform the song, I turn the mic towards the crowd, and I
Wow.
hope that the crowd knows the ending of it. Or I'm
Right,
screaming it anyway,
right,
and my team is screaming it out loud anyway. So
right.
when it came to that part, man, the crowd just went bananas because they all, other than like anyone who's like younger in age,
Right,
obviously,
right.
but like, my over 25, 30, 35 crowd, and up,
That's dope, man.
they lost their mind. So when I created that song, there was a performance piece set into the song too.
That's
Um,
dope, man.
yeah, man. So yeah, and
That
then when the drums roll in the beginning, the crowd loses their mind too. So
I know, I did too. I was like,
yeah.
"Man." Right? But when I heard this song, and uh, I was like, "Oh my god!" We listened to the album in the car, and was like, "Man, this guy's got a lot, man." And that's what the enjoyment of being able to uh, listen to certain artists, independent artists, underground artists. You get a different sound, you get a different feel. And when I heard it, just hearing this album, I was just like, "Man." And then I was like, "Man, why did he put Walk With Me all the way at the bottom?" I was like, and I got it. I was like, okay, he wants me to hear a different story and then get to the Walk With Me part. But then when I heard it backwards, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, okay.
So yeah, man, that's so yeah, it literally is. So each song is an individual story, but the
Right,
album in itself in its entirety is a story too. So
right,
like
right,
when you get to the Walk My Way part, uh you're like, oh, this is him like saying like, okay, we went through all this struggle, we went through all these things, and now like we're headed in the same direction. The
right,
great thing
right.
is that this next album picks up where that leaves off.
Oh,
Yeah, man.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it is
All right.
literally out the mud and then into the zenith, man. This is gonna be great, man.
So, wow, I can't wait to hear it. So, tell me, how do you feel like you've changed as an artist, but also as a person after this album?
Oh man, that is a loaded question, my friend.
Okay.
Whew, um I have come to I came across this. I think I may be mistaken, but I want to say it's Mark Twain. I think
Okay.
he said that the sign of it. No. I think it was Albert Einstein actually. He said the strongest sign of intelligence. And in any way, I'm not like downing anyone's intelligence
Right.
or
Right.
uplifting my own intelligence.
Right.
But this is what he said. He said the greatest form of intelligence is, or the greatest sign of intelligence is being able to change. And I felt like I learned so much in the creation of this album, and not only in creating it, but in performing it and having the integrity that I had on the album to like create it the way that I wanted it, and then being able to have the courage to like release it and like be like not ashamed of like what it sounded like, or like just being proud of
Right.
the work in its entirety and be like, hey, this is something completely different than what you've ever heard.
Right.
Not ever heard, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
different than the norm.
Right.
Like the beats in themselves are very soulful, but they have like a 90s feel to them. The rhymes have that same um, place and time.
Right.
Um,
And we're still getting a story too.
yeah, yeah, and um, so I learned so much about like, man, how much that I did grow, and to like go a little bit deeper into it in creating the new album. Um, I dug so deep that in creating this new work of art, this new body of art, that I came out, stronger than I ever have been, man. And I think like when you're creating a song that is true to like your life experience, like you're not just rhyming to rhyme, or you're not just rhyming
Right.
to put like a few cliches together, or my gun, my hoe, my this,
Right.
which is, I've done those verses. Hey, I'm not saying that I haven't, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just saying, like, I want, in writing a song, I was digging really deep into my life and my experiences. And, you know, sometimes when you've gone to not only like, not just the successes, but like the traumas, and you relive them in a way where you have to write about them and share about them. You literally like relive those moments, like you relive those moments of great success, you relive those moments where things weren't so great, and that's where you got it right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, man, like and I have to say I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that opportunity. Sometimes I would write the verse, like it almost, when I was done writing the verse, I would like lift my head from the paper and pen,
Right.
and be like, man, I would listen to what I wrote, and man, like, who wrote that, And I really
Yeah.
believe like sometimes we are a vessel, you know.
Right.
Whether you refer to um your being used by the creator, or by God, or by the universe. I really do believe that, as humanity as a whole, we share these finite experiences that we just all share, man. We all like are fighting the same struggle,
Yeah.
and that's what I wanted to share. That's
Okay.
what I wanted to give to like my community.
Okay.
Um,
What legacy do you want to leave as far as hip hop and music? What's kind of your personal legacy you want to leave?
um, I want for the listener that when they are done listening to any DJ Excel, Zeus Money, Self Hatred verse, that or verse or song, that they
Right.
leave the experience more empowered. And not only do they leave like more empowered, but they leave with like a gem that applies directly to their lifestyle. Like, hey man, I can apply this to my life. I can treat this person differently. I can forgive these people who have done, transgressions against me. I can decide to live a more joyful life. I can look past the things that I don't have, and enjoy the things that I do have.
Yeah.
And that's what I want for those who listen to the albums that me and my team create. Uh,
Nice.
yeah.
So kind of give your we're heading towards the end of the interview here. Kind of give
Yeah.
your final, gems to everybody out there, listeners, up and coming artists. Kind of give your gems for them.
Upcoming artist. Um, I want to tell you what I told my nephew. So my nephew again he is the other half of ZH, Self Hatred. He is the
Okay.
Hades. I am the Zeus. And when he was a little kid, I was still living in my parents' house. I was probably like 20 something years, young 20s, and I had all my closet full of sneakers, and Ralph Lauren and da da da.
Yeah.
And my nephew comes to stay over, and he's about 8 years younger than me, and I'm telling him, about ramen and what I like about ramen, and I spit this verse for him that he still knows and still raps back to me occasionally,
Uh,
and he said that when he heard that, he knew that this was something that he wanted to also do, and then years and years later, when he became an adult, we took on this endeavor together. But the advice that I gave him that day when he was a kid, when he first heard me, when I first like introduced rhyming to him, or not introduced it, but showed him like, hey, this is the way I do it, and I think you
yeah,
could do it, and I think you'd be ill at it because he's just a good person. He's got a good head on his shoulders. I told him like, what you got to do, man, you got to be true to yourself,
yeah.
and that's where actually the term self hatred comes from. It's not self hatred; it's self hatred with a Z and an H,
Mhm.
right? And so we all make mistakes and we all learn from the mistakes and embrace those mistakes. So it's
Right,
not self-hatred, it's self-hatred. So that's kind of
right.
what that signifies. It's like,
Okay,
we live with the good and the bad.
right.
And so, that was the advice I gave him that day, was like, look, whatever you do, whenever you put that pen down on that paper or write a rhyme into your notes in your cell phone, make sure it's the most honest version of you. And that's my advice, because anytime you try to copy somebody, or of course, as a growing artist, you are going to mimic others, but make
Yeah,
sure if you're mimicking that style that you're telling your story and not their story,
right,
because that's no way to live when you're telling somebody else's story.
right.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
might be cool, it might be a fad, it might be a trend, but it's not everlasting. When you tell your story, that's when people will orbit towards you, will gravitate towards you.
nice. So, the self hatred. Are you guys albums out also on Apple Music everywhere? Is it everywhere?
No, 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 no. Um, Hades is actually working on his solo project, and then
Okay,
we're once this new album, the Zenith is out, the
right.
Hades will come out after that, and then we're gonna do a collaborative Zelf Hades
Nice,
album.
nice, nice. Definitely shout out to him. Shout out to DJ Excel, man. Um, Shoot Hades my way. I can definitely, if he needs a little shine or wants his
Uh,
track reviewed or interview or album review, anything like that, man, definitely shoot him over my way, man. And you had
it's
spoken.
funny.
Go ahead.
It's funny that you said "Shine" because the one of the first or one of the first singles is called "Stop My Shine." It's an
Oh,
incredible song.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
I'll make sure to also follow him.
yeah,
Also, you guys also follow Zeus Money. Um, Walk with me. I reviewed that track. That will also be up here in the upper right hand corner somewhere. I always get that wrong. Also, link to his music. Also, the link to follow him. Make sure you send him a follow, man. He's really, really dope guy, man. I really appreciate him taking the time out here to do this interview, man. We really appreciate him, man. I know everybody requested this, long time coming. Really appreciate it, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time out today with me, man.
but
Can't wait to hear future. Yeah, can't wait to hear future projects, man. I know me and him have talked about doing an EP. We're
let's
gonna see
go.
where that goes. We're gonna see where that goes, man.
But
Um,
I also wanted to share my
yeah,
gratitude
go
to
ahead.
you as well, man. Like when I came across your platform,
Okay,
um, I was like, oh man, this is like a real genuine person, like this dude is really like trying to do something with hip hop, that
yeah,
and I bought into it, man. I believed it like right away,
I
um,
appreciate it, man.
and uh, I definitely, I'm gonna plug you every chance I get, man.
Okay,
Even like outside of like the interviews that you do, the stories that you post about hip hop, I can see that you are like, you genuinely love the art.
I
And
do.
man, I
Yeah.
just wish you all the success, man. This is a great opportunity. I hope we get to do it again soon.
Exactly, man.
And,
I'll even say also for me, man. You know how sometimes I kind of get in. There's a different game from being a YouTuber versus being an artist.
yeah,
Be the artist is kind of very perfectionist. I kind of look at what is everybody else going to say about my rhymes because I'm very critical towards other people, but I'm also critical towards myself. So for me, I've always been the type of guy that, man, I just love kind of uh, really articulating people's messages, how they want to the rhyme scheme, the lyrics, the album covers, their message. Because it's very easy to say, this album sucks or that album sucks, but I try to get into the weeds as far as like, hey, this album may not be good, but the message was somewhat unrelatable. It could have been conveyed a different way, or could have did this and that. And that's kind of the way I try to present it, because I know me as an artist, it's difficult, man. It's very difficult because you're like, I the self hatred. I can relate to that a lot, man. Because I do that a lot with me, man. So I really thank you, because sometimes I get up, I'm like, man, am I on the right path as far as just reviewing music? Are people going to care as far as me reviewing their music? How do people respond? I try not to be disrespectful or be like, no, your music sucks. I try to give a lot of motivation to people, man. So I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you taking the time, man. That means a lot. Not only to me, but to this channel, man. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate Zeus Money for really, really taking the time out again, man. Thank you, man. Looking to do this again, definitely, man. I'm philosophical
Bro,
from the Rap Review Room, y'all. We out, y'all.
see
Peace.
y'all.